Now, just tell you a little story. I was, for 1 year, a high school teacher. Public school, Grand Island Northwest High School outside of Grand Island, Nebraska. It was an interesting high school. It was a school of about 650 kids. It was on the outskirts of Grand Island. And so it actually drew from some of the smaller outlying elementary and junior high schools. Schools that basically serviced the agricultural community, farmers and ranchers in the area. And so the kids who went to Grand Island Senior High School in downtown Grand Island called Grand Island Northwest Cow Pie High. That's what they called it. So that's where I was teaching. I was 22 years old. I went into teaching English because it would give me an opportunity to be able to witness to high school kids. And that's why I did it. That makes me sound so noble, doesn't it? That's really why I did it. You start talking about English lit, it gives you all kinds of interesting values and social things to talk about. First day of class, I wore a tie, dress shirt, sport coat, dress slacks. I was way overdressed. And I had on my tie a tie tack. There was a little ichthus. You know the fish, the Christian fish symbol? First period of the first day, I'm scared to death. And all these students come in, and I take roll. And a kid, as soon as I got done taking roll, raised his hand. His name was Mark Meyer. I remember his face and where he was sitting in class. And he said, "You got a tie tack on. What is that?" And so I thought, cool, because you can't really talk about Jesus in the public schools, you know? Can't do that. In fact, I got in trouble twice for it, which is one of the reasons why I left public school teaching. So I just decided I wanted to get radical for Jesus all the time and not get in trouble for it, although I get in trouble for it plenty as it is. But anyway, he asked me about that, and so I had a chance to explain what this ichthus thing was, and that it stands for Christ. Ichthus, Jesus Christ, God's Son, Savior. It spells out in Greek ichthus, which means fish. Fish is the Greek word ichthus, and so stands for Jesus Christ, God's Son, Savior. So I explained all of that. And then we went on to our lesson. Well, I didn't realize this, but students talk in a high school. By third period, when I got together with my next batch of juniors, Bill Leiser, who was a stoner kid, a stoner cowboy, that's interesting, by the way, a stoner cowboy, asked the question, raised the hand and said, "Mr. V, do you think that religion helps a person?" Because the kids have been talking about it since first period. And I said, no. I don't think religion helps a person. I told him, I think having a relationship with Jesus Christ and being saved by grace helps a person. But there's all kinds of religions in the world. But we change from the inside out. As Jesus comes to dwell in us by faith, and as he begins to work his lordly influence in our life. And you all kind of went, what? Juniors in high school, right? How would they know? Well, it's an interesting little discussion. So what I want to suggest is that in point of fact, religion per se does not and cannot actually help a person. If we're talking about rules and regulations and holy readings and stuff like that, that in itself isn't any good. And there's tons of people who know Christianity and who know the Bible, and for whom there's no real help. It takes salvation in Christ, reliance upon Christ, and the grace of God to change us that actually helps us. So please don't misunderstand me. I think Christianity is a religion, and it's the right religion, and it's the truth. But if we just go just Christianity without salvation in Christ, forget about it. It doesn't help anybody. If we ask the same question, can religion help a family? I would say the same thing. It's Jesus that helps a family, and a relationship with him, and his grace and his power that helps us. And so what we're going to be talking today is another one of the marks of a strong family, and that is that a strong family, according to the study of Nick Stinnett, who used to be the head of the Family Studies Department at the University of Nebraska, A strong family typically has a strong religious orientation. Our context, a strong family is a Christian family where the people are living out the Christian life. Now, there's going to be several things that we're going to talk about here in terms of principles from the book of Proverbs. We're going to be going there rather than some other places where we might go. Proverbs is so wonderfully practical. So we're going to talk, first of all, about principles from the book of Proverbs for fathers. And these are sort of random things just to give us an idea. Let me just say this before I go any further. Those of you who still have kids at home, whether they're little kids or they're older, the most important thing I think that you can do for them is for you to live out the Christian life with your spouse. And if you're a single parent, you live it out in your relationship with the Lord so that he becomes your spouse. Easy for me to say that. But if you live out the Christian life, your kids will see it. They will have something to model. Sometimes it's easier to see something lived out as a guide for you than if we as parents just do lecturing to our kids all the time. A lot of times just lectures ad infinitum they'll just tune us out. But when they see us walking with the Lord, on occasion reading and studying our Bible, on occasion praying, on occasion where we might have a right to really sort of blow our top, they see us manage that in a really positive way, either toward them or toward others. If they see us going to church and really enjoying it and being blessed by it, that speaks volumes to them more than lectures will. And so the most important thing, guys, we can do is to really live it out. And while you're doing that, really love your kid. And some of that we're going to be talking about in a little bit. So let's talk about very generally and very quickly what Proverbs says about a father's role. A godly father, among other things, teaches compassion. In Proverbs 3:21, it says, "My son," please note that the book of Proverbs was written, among other things, for fathers to be able to instruct their kids. "My son, let not my teaching, let my words not depart from your sight. Keep sound wisdom and discretion." Proverbs 3:27, "Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due, when it is in your power to do so." One of the things that we ought to be doing as religious fathers, Christian fathers, be teaching our kids about compassion. A godly father, one of the principles from Proverbs, passes along a godly heritage. In Proverbs 4:1-9, it says, "Hear, O sons, the instruction of a father, and give attention that you may gain understanding, for I give you sound teaching. Do not abandon my instruction." This is a dad speaking to his kids. "When I was a son to my father, tender and the only son in the sight of my mother, then he taught me and said to me, let your heart hold fast my words. Keep my commandments and live. Acquire wisdom, acquire understanding. Do not forget nor turn away from the words of my mouth. Do not forsake her, and she will guard you. Love her," we're referring now to wisdom. "Love wisdom, and she will watch over you. The beginning of wisdom is acquire wisdom. And with all your acquiring, get understanding. Prize her, and she will exalt you. She will honor you if you embrace her. She will place on your head a garland of grace. She will present you with a crown of beauty." And so while we need to be careful about just lecturing our kids incessantly, part of passing on a godly heritage means that as we are living out and modeling these things so that our kids see wisdom at work in our own life, they pick it up as well. And that we are deliberate in teaching them about these things. In addition, a godly father encourages his kids to work hard. And you're thinking, well, why would you teach about this? Having a strong religious orientation in a family. So are you kidding me? Are you guys aware of the huge movement in our society where kids go away to college and then they move back home for 10 years? Are you aware of that? They have a term for that. You've heard of the word adolescence? There's now a term adult essence. Where the kids move away, they go to college or whatever, and then they come back home for a number of years and they live there. Now, a lot of the times it's not necessarily because they aren't working hard, but in many cases, I know of a bunch of families where in point of fact, the kids have come back home and they don't have any job and they do nothing. I just had a woman cut my hair about a week and a half ago. When she found out that I was a professor at Moody Bible Institute, I had a spiritual conversation with her, by the way, which I phoned in. I wanted to share the gospel with her, but she wouldn't shut up about her 24-year-old son who was living at home, sponging off of them, making her do all the laundry. She was picking up his room and making his bed. And I said, well, does he have a job? Well, his dad, who owns a landscaping company, would give him plenty of work. He could work full-time for his dad. On the average, he worked about a half a day to a full day a week, and that was it. Just enough to be able to get money to go play with his friends. And I'm just thinking, come on. And she said, what should I do? Yeah. And I said, throw him out. Throw him out. I said, yeah, and I was very gentle. Unlike how I am with you guys most of the time. I was very gentle with her. And I just said, you're enabling him to stay at home and do this. And I said, what does your dad say? If you threw him out, would your husband say? Would your husband back you? And she said, well, no, probably not. And I thought, well, that's good. So this is a problem these days. And I think part of it means that we need, among other things, we need to teach our kids that they need to work. And if they can't find a job working as some mid-level executive for IBM, okay, but they can go flip burgers at McDonald's. They can go be a security guard, which is what I did for 4 years working on my doctorate. Is that glamorous work? No. Does it pay well? No, it pays horribly. But it's honorable work. And it's better than nothing. And so I think we need to be careful about us teaching our kids about some of these things. In addition, a really godly father saves something for his grandchildren. Proverbs 13:22, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, and the wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous. See, I think the idea is that if we're careful, that we ought to be saving enough and not just blowing it all on ourselves, so that we can have something to pass on. And if nothing else, if we can't pass on money, then maybe we can pass on love and affection and our own testimony in Christ to them, which might be more valuable for them than even an inheritance we could leave. In addition, a godly father disciplines his children. Proverbs 13:24, he who spares his rod hates his son, but he who loves him disciplines him diligently. And you're going to have to forgive me for this. I actually believe in spanking children. No, hang on a second. There's a right way and a wrong way to do it, okay? Here's the right way to do it, okay? First of all, you don't do it in anger. You don't do it in anger. When you are red-faced with anger is not the time to go paddle them. That could become abuse. So you have to make sure that you are very much under control. You don't do it in anger. You do it under control. Afterwards, you show a lot of physical affection. Hug them and kiss them if they're younger, And you're probably not going to spank a 17-year-old. They could probably take you, But there's other things you're going to do. And then later, after you've done the disciplining, you need to teach and instruct them. And even if you don't believe in spanking, that's okay, but you got to find other ways to discipline. My kids spank a little bit, but not very much. They do a lot of timeouts. And I think for the most part, they seem to be fairly effective, although I'm pretty sure, my guess is there's children out there in the world for whom a timeout would do nothing. And so, if you don't want to spank, that's fine, but you got to find something to do. Listen now, you got to listen to me now. If you let your kid run the house when he's 4, he will own it when he's 14. You got to establish that parental authority right out of the gate. And unfortunately, a lot of parents tend to think, I want my child to be my friend. I want my 5-year-old and my 8-year-old to be my friend. You know what? Be a parent to them. And then when they get to be 20, 25, 30, they'll be dear friends of yours. all other things being equal. So my kids, you know who my best friends are? It's not the couple of guys I work with at Moody Bible Institute or Doug Gillespie, even though Doug's a dear friend of mine, one of my best friends. My two best friends are Tim Van Lanningham and Becky Van Lanningham Stevenson. Love being around them, and apparently they like it too. They'll invite us over a lot. And it's really interesting when they do. If we go out for dinner, we always buy for them. Maybe that's why they ask us over. I don't know. And I think part of the reason why we've grown up to be so close is really and truly because we established our parental authority with a lot of love when they were really little. Well, there's some principles from the book of Proverbs for moms as well. And I'm not going to read through it, but if you want to look at Proverbs 31, verses 10 through 31, there's basically three things that it talks about there. It talks about industriousness, about the mom being a hard worker. And she's not just a hard worker out there in the work world, but she's a hard worker at home as well. That's not to say that the husband shouldn't help out. He should, but it depends on what the husband does. I had a secretary at my church in Nebraska named Kathy Merchant. Kathy is a wonderful woman. She's married to a farmer. They farmed forever and ever and ever. They've been retired a number of years when I met her. And she said, I wasn't going to make my husband, whose name was Floyd, I wasn't going to make Floyd do the dishes with me and vacuum the carpet. You know, he was out working from 5 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night, moving around irrigation pipe and taking care of the cattle and you know, throwing bales of hay and stuff all that time. I wasn't going to make him come home and scrub the walls. I did that. Now, she didn't work outside of the home. So I think part of it depends on what the husband does. And part of it depends on what the wife does as well. But no matter how you slice it, Proverbs 31 indicates that the mom is industrious about and in the home. So whatever she's doing outside, she needs to be there as well. She also is diligent. She also shows kindness. And here, I want to talk about my wife. And I realize that some of you, when I talk about my wife, you kind of go, just shoot me now. If I hear about St. Susan once again, I'm going to throw up. Well, we have wonderful kids who are much better Christians than I am. I don't think actually that they're better Christians than their mom, but they're better Christians than me. And there's two reasons for that: the grace of God and a wonderful mother. Mother who typically wakes up at 4 o'clock in the morning, if not earlier. So she can get right in the shower and kind of start getting ready for the day. And then at 5 o'clock sharp, she goes out to the big leather chair in our living room, and she'll sit there. And she will pray and study the scriptures for an hour. And when I hear about her prayer life, and how broadly she prays. She's one of the only people I know who actually prays for the missionaries our church supports regularly. She reads their prayer letter. She's praying about the compassion child that she pushed us to support, and about our kids. I think if I have any success in my life, on a human level, it's not because of me, it's because of her. So I just want to urge you, ladies, you got to walk with the Lord. You need to serve your family. It's the right thing to do. There'll be huge blessings that will come to them as you do that. And now when we get home, my wife will kill me for having said that. I thought she was going to be in the nursery today, but I just saw her. She's here. So it's game over, There are also some principles from the book of Proverbs. A wise son or daughter listens to his or her parents. Proverbs 1:8, hear my son. And it's not just for my sons, it's for the girls too. Hear my son, your father's instruction. Do not forsake your mother's teaching. Proverbs 1:15, my son, my daughter, do not walk in the way with them. Keep your feet from their path. A wise son or daughter strives to avoid evil. Proverbs 4:20-27. A wise son or daughter avoids sexual sins. Proverbs chapter 5, half of chapter 6, and all of chapter 7 are about staying away from sexual immorality. Some of it is addressed to kids, to young people. Now, I don't want to beat up our kids here, and there's so few of them in our church anymore, just thinking, oh, whatever. By the way, let me also mention, those of you who don't have children at home anymore, how many of you have grandchildren? Let me see your hands, please. Okay, me too. We don't have kids at home anymore. We have a dog, We don't have kids at home anymore. But you know what? The stuff that we're talking about here, and don't be saying, I don't have kids at home. Got grandkids, you can do this stuff too. You should, because maybe their parents won't, but you can. But I have to say this. I have seen so many families where an irresponsible dad or an irresponsible mom pump poison into the family. But I've seen it in spades with the children. Kids, I just want to say this. Your mom and dad are not idiots. Probably. When they say things to you, it's because they care for you and they understand from a parent's perspective the kinds of stuff that can really mess you up. You should listen to them. They have ideas that are going to be helpful for you. And when you consistently blow them off and go and do your own things and fall into sin, you wreak havoc and bring chaos into their home. It becomes so difficult for them. You are larger than just yourself or your pleasures. You have a family that you're part of and that you're partly responsible for the health and the solidity of it. You've got to pay attention to that. You are not absolved of responsibility for the health and the welfare of your family. A wise son or daughter avoids assuming someone else's debt. And let me just say, parents, if you're advising your kids not to go into debt, now we're talking about older kids now, okay? Grown-up kids maybe. If you're advising your kids not to go into debt because they could be really, really killed, you're going to be tempted to want to bail them out. If you have financial resources, maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you should tell them at the front end, look, if you do this, I'm not going to help you. I don't think this is wise. A wise son or daughter is willing to work hard. We've talked about that. And a wise son or daughter makes his father glad. He also doesn't procrastinate. Isn't it interesting the kinds of things that Proverb talks to kids about? He doesn't procrastinate. He doesn't despise instruction. And he doesn't curse his parents. Here's what I want to suggest. If strong families have a strong religious orientation, then I want to propose that you should pray every day this month for your fellow family members about one need that you know they have. Doesn't matter if they're still at home or not. And then second, ask them, how is it going between you and God in this particular area that I've been praying for you about? After a week or two, ask them and see what happens. The main thing, family will have a good, strong religious orientation that will help them if, in fact, everybody's walking with the Lord. When a man's ways please the Lord, even his enemies are at peace with him. If our ways are pleasing the Lord, then our mom and dad's probably going to be happy with us, our spouse is probably going to be happy with us, and we'll be happy with our kids if we're all trying to just live for the Lord. Now, there's another mark of a strong family that we're going to be talking about tonight. See, I preached these in the past, all separate messages, but I just wanted to be able to get through these things right now before I leave for a month in Italy. So, Armand Nicoli, psychologist, has written, "Early family experience determines our adult character structure, the inner picture we have of ourselves. how we see others and feel about them, our concept of right and wrong, our capacity to establish the close, warm, sustained relationships necessary to have a family of our own, our attitude toward authority and toward the ultimate authority in our lives, that's God, and the way we attempt to make sense out of our existence. No human interaction has greater impact on our lives than our family experience. And so along those lines, I want to talk about how important it is to spend time with our family members, and mainly we're going to be talking about spending time with our kids, with our children or our grandchildren. What we're going to call this is focused attention. In fact, would you say those two words, focused attention? Ready, go. Focused attention. All right, here's the priority of focused attention. Focused attention is basically spending time with another family member, in this case with our kids, so that there is nothing else that distracts us just from them. The activity of focused attention involves time alone with our child. It's just me and him or her. And you can do this as a grandparent too, and you should. When my daughter was little, I mean like 4, 5, 6, 7 years of age, and I was pastoring in Nebraska. It was not unusual. I would oftentimes go out a night or two during the week and visit 1 or 2 individuals in their homes, just doing pastoral visitation. I love that. I would be doing more of that here, except I only work part-time at this church. I think maybe you guys know that. Otherwise, I would be happy to do more. And not all the time, but rather frequently, I would take my daughter along with me. Imagine taking a 5-year-old into some 80-year-old's house, you know. But they loved it, and she loved it too. She'd sit very quietly. She was very well behaved most all the time. And a lot of times after we'd get done, we'd go to a local restaurant, Chances Are Restaurant, York, Nebraska, named for the Johnny Mathis song. And we'd get dessert. More than a few times she ordered carrot cake, which came about the size of my head. She'd get a piece of carrot cake like this. She'd eat 3 bites of it. Oh, that's so good. And then we'd take it home, put it in the fridge for her, and then miraculously it would disappear over the next couple of days without her ever having a bite. I don't know how that happened. It's really astonishing. But you know, the fact that the driving to and from with her in the car there next to me, and even the fact that she was there serving Jesus with me, and the time afterwards, those were precious times. I don't know if she has any recollection of any of that, but those were dear times. And I think it's part of those that sort of help weld you together with your kids. It's so valuable, and it's so helpful for them. It fills their emotional tanks, and that's what they need. Focused attention also involves lots of eye contact. It means you're looking at them, you're positive eye contact. It probably involves a lot of physical contact as well. Now, when the kid's little, you can wrestle on the floor, you can tickle. I would tickle my kids, but we had a magic word, woomy zoomy scaramucci. And when they said that, I stopped tickling just like that, hands off. And they'd be able to calm down and get away from me, and then sometimes they'd come back and I'd grab them, I'd tickle them, woomy zoomy scaramucci. And so it was never abuse. Just want you to know that. Physical contact. When a kid gets older, son, you might wrestle with them. You might walk up to him, punch him on the shoulder, or slap him on the chest. Or how about a daughter? Put an arm around the shoulder. Maybe you're not going to do hugs and kisses anymore. My daughter and I still kiss on the cheek when we see each other when we leave. We used to kiss. And so maybe a arm around a shoulder, a squeeze on the shoulder, pat on the back. When the kid's older, physical affection, physical contact. It's part of focused attention. The goal of focused attention is that you want your kid to feel and to sense that at this moment, I am the most important person in the world to my mom or dad at this second. There's nothing more important to my mom or dad than me right now. Now, there's one caution that I just want to suggest. We evangelicals in North America have made an idol out of our families, and here's what I mean by that. You have to remember that Jesus himself taught that if any man loves father, mother, sister, brother, farms, or anything else more than me, he is not fit for the kingdom of heaven. We have to love Jesus more. And what I want to suggest also is that on occasion, it is absolutely right and appropriate for us to say no to some of our family members and what even might be some of their needs, and to address and do some things that are of a Christian or church nature. I have seen way too many times where family always trumps church. I just am here to tell you that if that's the case, then you have made you have made your family a higher priority than church. And if the church is Jesus' body, it's likely, I think, that you have made family a higher priority than Jesus. That's idolatry. I guess so I think the vast majority of the time we can and we should be letting our family be a higher priority than church. But there are times, you got to hear me when I say this, there are times when your church needs you. And the Lord needs you to do something at church. And to be consistently saying, no, family time. In my experience, what I found out with people is that family time often amounts to sitting around the house with your kids watching Star Trek reruns. I have seen Little League Baseball during spring, summer, and fall months become the number one priority for a Christian family. And I think you ought to go to every game you possibly can. But if your church involvement and your Christian work consistently suffers from that, then you need to reconsider whether or not actually you're doing the right stuff. So we have to take that very seriously. I'm all in favor of us prioritizing our family, but sometimes that might be idolatrous. On this whole idea of focused attention, I've got a really cute little thing I want to read from the late columnist and humorist Irma Bombeck. She passed away, 20 years ago or 25 years ago, so I love Irma Bombeck. This comes out of her book, Motherhood, the Second Oldest Profession. I won't tell you what the first one is. And she's written this, again, about sort of focused attention and time with your kids. Everyone said Sharon was a terrific mother. Her neighbors said it. She painted the inside of her garbage cans with enamel, grew her own vegetables, cut her own grass every week, made winter coats for the entire family from remnants, donated blood, and baked Barbara Mandrell a doll cake for her birthday. Her mother said it. Sharon drove her to the doctor's when she had an appointment, color coordinated the children's clothes and put them in labeled drawers, laundered aluminum foil and used it again, planned family reunions, wrote her congressman, cut everyone's hair and knew her health insurance policy number by heart. Her children's teacher said that she's a terrific mom. She helped her children every night with their homework, delivered her son's paper route when it rained, packed nutritious lunches with little raised faces on the sandwiches, was homeroom mother, belonged to 5 carpools, and once blew up 234 balloons by herself for the 7th grade cotillion parade thing. Her husband said it. Sharon washed the car when it rained, saved antifreeze from year to year, paid all the bills, arranged their social schedule, sprayed the garden for bugs, moved the hose during the summer, put the children on their backs at night to make sure they didn't sleep on their faces, and once found a $12 error in their favor on a tax return filed by H&R Block. Her best friend said it, that she's a terrific mom. Sharon built a bed out of scraps left over from the patio, crocheted a Santa Claus to cover the extra roll of toilet paper at Christmas time, washed fruit for her before her children ate it, learned to play the harpsichord, kept a Boston fern alive for a whole year, And when the group ate lunch out, she always figured out who owed what. Her minister said it. Sharon found time to read all the dirty books and campaign against them. That's my favorite. She played the guitar at evening services. She corresponded with a poor family in Guatemala in Spanish. She put together a cookbook to raise funds for a new coffee maker for the church. She collected door to door for all the health organizations. Sharon was one of those women blessed with a knack for being organized. She planned a theme party for the dog's birthday, made her children elaborate Halloween costumes out of old grocery sacks, and her knots came out just right on the shoelaces when they broke. She put a basketball hoop over the clothes hamper as an incentive for good habits, started seedlings in a toilet paper spindle, and insulated their house with empty egg cartons, which everyone else threw away. Sharon kept a schedule that would have brought another woman to her knees. Need 25 women to chaperone a party? Give the list to Sharon. Need a mother to convert the school library to the Dewey Decimal System? Call Sharon. Need someone to organize a block party, garage sale, or school festival? Get Sharon. Sharon was a super mom. Her gynecologist said it. Her butcher said it. Her tennis partner said it. Her children never said it. They spent a lot of time with Rick's mom, who was always home and who ate cookies out of a box and played poker with them. I love Irma Bombeck. We got to be spending time with our kids. A lot of times it won't take tons, but even a little bit, sincerely devoted to them, could change their lives. Always remember, God spends time with you one-on-one. We have to go to Him, but He's always there for us. We should be going to our kids. That's just what they need. Strong families spend time with each other. Let's pray about this, all right? Heavenly Father, these are just little ideas that could help us. We pray that they might. Just want to ask that we might start doing just a few of the things that we're talking about here with our kids or with our grandkids, because they could be really helpful for them. Help us to be aware of the need to do this, Lord. Help us just to sort of discipline ourselves to bring this about. Our kids aren't here for all that long, We only have them just for a relatively short time. And we need to build into them. So please help us to do that. Ann Ortland, in her book entitled Children Are Wet Cement, talks about how time just flies. She wrote, my newborn babe struggles from my arms and toddles off to school. A tall young man accompanies her home. Their child brings me my glasses and shawl. There are times when I would love to be able to wrestle with Tim. Him being 8 years old. I did that plenty when he was 8. It'd be cool to be able to do it again. And to tickle Becky again. If I did it now, she'd punch me. glad I did it then.